Gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's March the 29th, 2023. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined once again today by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day. And Matt, I think we should start off with football today because we've been talking so much basketball and covering so much basketball, and we're still 4 days away from the game in Houston against Connecticut in the semifinals of the Final Four. And we'll be breaking that down and talking a lot about that as the week goes on. And I'll touch on some things later in the show. But the Canes returned to football practice yesterday. So I thought we'd take the opening segment of this show and give everybody their fix of football a little bit. And part of our daily routine yesterday was we got to talk to Mario Cristobal in multiple ways. We got to do our own interview with him after practice. JD Piquel of On3 got to do a really nice 12-minute interview with him. That's also on the website. So a lot of Mario Cristobal is on the website right now for those of you that want the head coach's take on everything going on in spring practice and the program. And Matt, we asked him who's standing out in spring practice, and he took the bait on that and proceeded to reel off about 22 names, I believe it was, by the time he was done, of guys that are impressing him in spring practice. Can it possibly be that good, Matt Shodell?
This is what makes me crazy about this modern era. I mean, God forbid you say somebody's not doing great. God forbid you say the team's not amazing. It's ridiculous. I mean, Javion Cohen is pounded with questions. What's the difference between Miami and Alabama? Apparently, there's no difference except the weather's nicer here. Miami's offensive line just as talented as Alabama. Like, he literally said that. I don't love the whole thing. This whole thing about who's doing well, Mario? He read the depth chart. Enough's enough. Miami will be back when Mario Cristobal has the guts to stand up there and say, we're not that good. We have a lot of work to do. Here's the problems I have at linebacker. Here's the problems I have at safety. Here's the problems I have with my depth at whatever. I mean, that's when Miami will be back, because they're not being truthful. And I've seen it in the past, and I don't know if he believes the stuff he's saying. I hope not. But in the past, I've seen these Miami head coaches become deluded, thinking their team is amazing because the players say they're amazing. The coaches say they're amazing. They play against each other. So it's amazing against amazing every day. And, even Mario was fooled last year into thinking his offensive line was really good, into thinking his team was actually good. We heard the same spiel last fall, and honestly, it makes me a little bit nauseous. I don't want to hear this anymore. The team won 6 games? I didn't remember how many. It wasn't enough games last year, whatever they won. 5 games. It wasn't
not
good.
Enough. No, it was not enough.
This was 3 months ago. The team was 5-7. You add a few transfers. Now all of a sudden everyone's amazing. This is the greatest team ever. We're Alabama. Do they think we're stupid? Tell the truth.
All right. Well, let's put it under a microscope, okay, for a minute, and let's just slow down and see if you're right. Okay. So he starts off talking about Tyler Van Dyke. Okay. So it's not a surprise that Tyler Van Dyke is doing well. It's not a surprise that Shannon Dawson's offense is fitting Tyler Van Dyke better than Josh Gaddis's offense did, because Josh Gaddis's offense didn't fit Tyler Van Dyke at all.
What were the players saying about Josh Gaddis's offense last year in the fall? What before the season? What was Coach Mario Cristobal saying about Josh Gaddis's offense before the season last season? It's the same identical quotes. I'm just sick of it. Just be real. Say, listen, here's the problem last year on offense. Here's how we fixed it. I just don't need these pie in the sky, we're great now quotes. Tell me details. What's better? In the scrimmage, God forbid you say who did well. Somebody asked him, Mario, who stood out in the scrimmage? Well, today, Francisco Mauigoa had an interception. That wasn't what you were asked. Like, if you're not going to tell us anything, don't do interviews. The interviews are there for the fans to get an insight into the team. Fans don't want to be fooled. No fan wants to hear a 5-win coach 3 months later saying everything's amazing now. Like, just it is what it is. Like, his whole
man,
mantra,
I'm glad I'm leaving for Houston Thursday morning because you're gonna be banned from the practice field by then.
I don't care. Like, I'm just telling the truth, man, because I've covered this team for too long to just hear the same stuff over and over again. When Miami's back, Miami coaches won't be afraid to say, this guy's not good enough. We're going to find better. That's Miami. Miami's always been brash. Miami's always had an edge to it. It's okay to say that. It's okay to say, we got a problem at this position. We're going to fix it. And what the problem is, it's okay to say this position's great. Tyler Van Dyke really is great. Because when you say this position's not great, and then you say Tyler Van Dyke is great, then I'll believe you when you say Tyler Van Dyke is great. Because all we're seeing is 30 minutes of practice. And if you're going to tell me that all 22 players are amazing, that every position is going to be so much improved, that the culture has been magically fixed in 3 months, like, I'll believe it when you tell me some of the negative stuff too. Like, here's some of the problems we're still dealing with. Tell me that, then I'll believe the other stuff. But, like, I'm not going to willy-nilly just buy into, oh my gosh, everything's amazing. This guy is purple, which it is. Everyone thinks it's blue. It's actually purple naturally. Like, when you tell me this guy's purple, then I'll believe you. Don't keep telling me this guy's blue.
All right. Wipe your chin a little bit. I think you either spit on yourself or you're sweating.
I'm just sweating.
Yeah, okay. I figured it was one or the other.
I'm agitated.
I get it.
Don't ask me to listen. Stop asking me to respond to what coaches and players are saying in spring ball because it aggravates me. It aggravates me.
I see that, and I'm going to be honest here, and I'm going to say you're not totally wrong. Like, they were saying that last spring, they were saying that last fall about Josh Gattis.
Not just them. Manny Diaz said the same stuff. Mark Rick said the same. Every coach for 20 years. I want to hear something different. Tell me the problem. Tell me how you're going to fix it. Then I'll be interested somewhat in what you're saying.
You are the reason why we only get to talk to Mario twice a year now. Like, it's, but no, in all seriousness, you're not wrong. You know, we were hearing a lot of the same stuff, not just last year, but in past years as well. That said, I don't have a hard time acknowledging with Shannon Dawson being the level of offensive coordinator that he is, bringing his systems to Miami with a quarterback of the level of Tyler Van Dyke, that Tyler Van Dyke is performing very, very well.
Yeah.
And
by the way, I'm not saying there's no hope. I'm not saying there's no hope. I'm not saying there's no hope. I'm saying that this could be a great team. I'm saying just
we get it. We get it.
I don't think so. I don't think you get it. I don't think you care. Whatever.
No, we got it. We got it. But here's why I believe that the offense is fitting Tyler Van Dyke really well. Because from what we have seen in practice, and granted, we're not getting to see as much as we would like, Ja'Cory Brown and Emory Williams are both doing very, very well under the coaching of Shannon Dawson. I mean, the quarterback position, 1, 2, 3, to me, to my eye, just from what we have seen so far, looks significantly improved. Okay. So I believe there's good coaching going on. I believe that the routes that are being run, the schemes that are being put in, and Shannon Dawson told us that he's put in about 85% of his offense at this point in the spring, which I was actually absolutely stunned by. I couldn't believe they've put that much in so far, considering that they took a week and a half off to go hang out at Fort Lauderdale Beach. And
his offense is only 7 plays. He didn't tell you that part. It's only a 7-play offense.
So anyway, no, that was Rhett Lashley's offense. But no, I mean, I think that the quarterback situation is better. I think Ja'Cory is throwing the ball. I don't know what mechanical issues. A lot of it, I guess, had to do with footwork and stuff. He still has some throws where, you kind of say, whoa, that didn't look so great. But, like, it's at a whole different planetary level than it was a year ago. I think you guys can be really excited about that. And Emory Williams is going to be a good college quarterback, I think. I think that's going to be a very, very interesting competition next spring when Tyler Van Dyke presumably would no longer be here. But I think he could come back even one more year if he wants. So we'll see what happens there. But the 2 young guys are getting better. Now, I did a radio show yesterday, Matt, and they asked me if Miami was going to go in the transfer portal and look for another quarterback. And my immediate instinct was, no, they're not going to the transfer portal looking for another quarterback. But I was thinking about it, like, do they have a backup quarterback that they absolutely know that they can count on? And the answer to that, if you're going to be honest, would be absolutely not. And I'm wondering if they get a young quarterback to add into this competition in the next spring, and then presumably a fourth with a true freshman. I wonder if they would take one in the transfer portal later this year. I'm not going to predict it'll happen, but it might be something to think about,
I think that they will certainly be on the hunt for a quarterback. 3 is not enough. And the question is going to be, do they just settle on somebody to have a number, which I don't want them to do. You guys all know that, unless it's maybe a senior, graduate senior, whatever. What I would like to see them do is to maybe get a guy. I don't know. I haven't researched the whole country, but hopefully there's a school where there's a spring battle ongoing with 2 top quarterbacks, and one of them maybe has a sense that he's not going to win the job. And with the premise that Tyler Van Dyke will be gone next year, and the premise that, hey, Jakari still does have some footwork issues. Hey, Jakari had a rough year last year. Hey, Emery's
a true freshman.
We got no one else. You're a junior. Come to us, have one great year, and then go to the pros. That might be a selling point. But there's going to be no selling point to me to try and grab, some redshirt freshman or some sophomore who just has never gotten a chance anywhere. Because, you're just basing it like Tate Martell and him being a 5-star or a 4-star and looking at his high school film. You're not seeing his practice film, and you've got no game film for 2 years. I don't take chances like that with a roster number at quarterback, personally. And then the other thing is, you already have a second-year quarterback. You already have a first-year quarterback. You're going to have another incoming quarterback. You don't really need 4 quarterbacks within 2 years of each other to be competing next year. So I'd like it a lot if they can get an older quarterback in the portal, preferably a junior. Hypothetically, if there's a senior who's actually really good, I don't know why they'd come and sit behind Tyler. But I mean, if there's a really good senior quarterback, I'll take that too, just because they're gone in a year and you have some insurance that way. But short of that, that's just how I sort of look at it. But I think they will be on the hunt for a quarterback. I don't see why they wouldn't be. You need 4.
Yeah, I would go get one. If there's a good one there, like you say, I would not reach. But if there is a good one there, I would go get one and add to the competition. Man, you can't have enough competition, and you can't be afraid to have too much competition. You just got to get the best players you can get in the program and let the competitions work themselves out. All right. The other thing I thought was interesting is, as the Mario Cristobal Festival of Happiness continued,
is it Hanukkah already?
Huh?
Is it Hanukkah already? It's the Festival of Happiness?
Festival of Happiness.
Is that like your personal Hanukkah? That's like the Ferman version.
As a tribute to your opinions, I'm going to call it the Festival of Happiness.
It's the Ferman Hanukkah. It's not the Festival of Lights. It's the Festival of Happiness.
It was a Festival of Happiness at that Mario Cristobal press conference yesterday.
Yeah. You know what? I'm so miserable in my life. When we celebrate Hanukkah in my family, we take things away from the children. We say, you don't deserve that. The Jews have suffered for so many years. Why should you get a present? Give us something in your room that you like a lot. And that's how we celebrate.
All right. Let me continue here because I'm getting ready to talk about Henry Parrish. And Mario Cristobal spoke of Henry Parrish in ridiculously glowing terms, said that he's totally different, felt that he got a little banged up last year because the offensive line was not very good. And he says with a better offensive line this year, that Henry Parrish is getting downhill. He's able to get up like he's never seen him do, and he's catching the ball really well. That Henry Parrish is a very, 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 we'll call him a winning football player in spring practice. Your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, look, I don't throw guys under the bus. Henry Parrish had some issues last year.
He got beat up. It
wasn't really that. I mean, it was more just a mental case with him. He didn't want to play.
Getting the crap kicked out of him.
From everything I heard, he just didn't want to play. Didn't want to play
because it hurt.
But so yeah, he looks great now. He's not getting hit. They're thudding. I just want to make sure that when the games start, Henry Parrish doesn't cave in again. He already caved in once. That's a little troubling to me for a running back when you want a physical attack. Can he catch the ball? Yeah, I think he's a great third down back. I would rather see Don Chaney or Mark Fletcher, or Trevante Citizen, who won't be 100% this year. It was a really major injury. So everyone keeps asking about Trevante. I don't think he's going to be helpful this year. I think he will be next year. But Mark Fletcher's the guy to me. That's the guy who can do it all. Is he going to do pass protections? No, but that's why you have a third down back to help protect the quarterback. On first and second downs, so it's not obvious passing situations. Remember, those defensive linemen are not pinning their ears back and coming after the quarterback like they are on 3rd and 10. So I would love to see Mark Fletcher be the early down back, and I think they should do it sooner rather than later. I've seen past regimes, can we call it that, or these like coup d'etats that happen? I don't know, but I call them past regimes that have simply gone with older players, the Wayne Steeds of the world, simply because they sort of know what they're doing. And I've always been a big fan of, no, get the best player in there and hope they figure it out. Because I remember back in the day when this team was winning national championships, they would put guys in that were young and had no idea what they were doing. And they would tell me, the coaches would tell me back then, we would rather have a guy going 100 miles an hour in the wrong direction than someone that can only run 50 miles an hour. And you just hope the guy runs in the right direction most of the time, So like that's what I want to see. And I'm just hoping that they don't err on the side of, okay, well, Henry Parrish played last year. Mark Fletcher hasn't played in college yet. Let's let Henry Parrish carry the load. Then they lose a couple of games and it's like, oh, well, season's over. Now let's go to Mark Fletcher. Like that's not what I want. I want them to play the best guy. And I personally think the best guy physically with the ball in his hands running is going to be Mark Fletcher in this offense. I think most people would agree with that if they've seen Mark Fletcher play this year, and if they watched Henry Parrish from last year. So that's me. I have a feeling Henry Parrish is going to be the starter in the first game and be the featured back until, God forbid, something happens. They lose a couple of games or Henry Parrish decides that he doesn't want to take the pounding anymore. But I don't want to be so pessimistic. Fans hate that I'm pessimistic.
Oh, sure you don't.
To me,
that's all you've been on this show so far. We're 16 minutes and 36 seconds in on this show, and you haven't said one positive thing yet.
I'll give you a positive after this. But to me, it's not pessimism. It's just realism. They were 5-7. I'm not going to sit here and say everything's great. So here's the positive. I ate at Amal last night in the Grove, and it was outstanding. The hummus at Amal is it's almost like butter. I actually think it probably is butter, and they just are selling it as hummus and making a lot of extra money. But get the butter at Amal in the Grove. It's fantastic. No, if you want a positive for this football team, I think these two coordinators are huge upgrades. I love Lance Guidry. I mean, the hands-on approach he's taking, what I'm hearing from some people just about how he's going to be able to confuse offenses, like that's what's made me crazy with some of these coordinators. They'll just and he blitzes like crazy. I get it, but he disguises coverage behind it. These other coordinators just blitz like crazy, and there's nothing behind it it's just simple behind it, and you give up 3-4 big plays in a game because of it, and you give up 24 points, 28 points, 35 points because of it. So I really like what he's doing because I'm so sick of an opposing offense coming in, right? Think about how many times this has happened in the last 15, 20 years. An opposing team comes in that's average to below average, and they score on the first possession, and they score on the second possession. And after the game, the coaches are asked, what happened? And the players are asked, what happened? And they all say, they did something we hadn't seen on film. Why can't the defense take it to the offense? This is what Lance Guidry does. He doesn't wait for the offense to say, hey, here's what we're going to do to you, and then adjust. He takes it to the offense and makes the offense adjust. And it's the first time they've had a coordinator like that in forever. Even Manny Diaz would sit back and wait a few series to see what they're trying to do to me and then try to figure it out. How often can I blitz? No, Lance Guidry does some really unique things.
Manny Diaz would blitz a lot. I don't remember him waiting 3 series.
Lance Guidry's going to blitz. Lance Guidry's going to blitz plenty, but he drops a defensive end into coverage when he's blitzing a linebacker. He does all sorts of really unique things. And Miami's got the athleticism to be able to do what he wants them to do. And Akeem Messidor, in one of the few honest moments yesterday, said he hates not playing with his hand in the ground. Good for you, Akeem Messidor. The only honest thing that anybody said yesterday, aside from me saying that Amal was an excellent meal. And, so Akeem Messidor has to learn to play basically standing up like a blitzing linebacker because that's how they run their defense. They are going to be, you can't have a hand in the ground when you're trying to get back in coverage, right? And Lance Guidry's trying to get opposing offenses to not know what the hell he's going to do. Defensive ends could drop, they could rush, they could do whatever. Linebacker, same thing. Safety, same thing. They could blitz any play. Corner blitzes can come. The quarterback is going to have to be looking at all 11 players on the snap because they're going to be moving all over the place, right? And that's difficult. Unless you're an experienced quarterback, unless you're an experienced offense, this is going to be a really difficult defense to decipher. Now, by the same token, and this is positive, right? I'm giving you positives. By the same token, Miami has to understand how to play this defense. And right now, they have no idea what the hell's going on this defense. But the good news is they have a few months to study their playbooks and make Lance Guidry understand, hey, they know 50% of it. Hey, they know 80% of it. And they better know 90 to 100% of it if he's going to be able to really do what he wants to do. My guess is by the first game, they'll know 60% of it. That's my actual realistic guess. Sorry.
All right. So while all these negative thoughts are going through your head,
that was a positive.
And we get hit with the fact that even though the tight end position is loaded, and it is, that Stephen Field is going to leave the coaching spot at the tight end position, go upstairs and be Mario Cristobal's right hand administrative type assistant and internal recruiting guy as well. And Cody Woodhill is going to take over tight ends. Doesn't matter. I mean, Miami's so talented there. Doesn't matter who's coaching them, Matt.
No, but let's get to this point, okay? Because you sold a bill of goods, Ferman, 2 weeks ago that Cam McCormick was a second coming combination of Greg Olsen and Jeremy Shockey. And all of a sudden, after one scrimmage, he's demoted to second team. Is it because Jaleel Skinner's amazing? Maybe. But I mean, what happened, Ferman? What happened to your boy Cam McCormick, who's going to be the greatest tight end ever?
I think the depth chart means absolutely nothing. And
he's the only one that got demoted after the scrimmage. The only one from the first team.
He's going to play plenty. I'm not buying into any of that nonsense. All right, so I don't know.
Tight end room's loaded. They're not going to have a problem. The coaching's fine. Woodhill's a really, really up and coming. He's going to be a great
up-and-coming young coach.
He's not going to be here for he's not going to be here for long. He's a future head coach. I mean, the guy. Everything I've heard, the guy's really a mastermind. Really understands offense.
All right, so I think it was you before practice. Was it you that I had the wide receiver conversation with?
No.
And no, maybe it was a Zuby.
Someone who looks like me.
No, it might have been a Zuby or something. I don't remember, but we were talking about the fact that Miami's probably going to be in the market for a transfer receiver or two when the portal reopens. And then Mario goes on to mention pretty much every receiver on the team as doing well in spring practice. But the guys that really got the shout outs, I would say, are Jacoby George, Ray Joseph, Robbie Washington, and Colby Young, and Xavier Restrepo. Those are the receivers I think that got the best mentions, even though a few more were mentioned. Matt, I'm not buying yet. I'm not ready yet to proclaim the receiver position in a good place. I'm going to have to see that with my own eyes. Your thoughts?
Look, we don't get to watch a lot, but from what I've seen, and I know everyone's on the Colby Young and Xavier Restrepo train, and I'm not saying those guys aren't going to do great, but what I've seen out of Jacoby George, his speed, quickness, hands. I mean, he caught a pass yesterday that I haven't seen a Miami receiver catch in years. I mean, a bullet that he just snagged with his fingertips like it was nothing. I am really high on Jacoby George, and I think this receiver room, last fall, I kept going back and forth. You were saying they were awful. I kept going back and forth from awful to they'll be okay to awful to they'll be okay. I couldn't make up my mind.
If you have Colby Young, Jacoby George, and Xavier Restrepo, and the two freshmen as your primary guys, I think they'll be
fine. Yeah, but I do think they still need a top transfer receiver would be amazing. Like if they get that,
you need an alpha dude.
Yeah, if they get that, this offense, could be special. Quite honestly, if the offensive line is as good as it can be, which look, if they wind up starting. If Zion isn't able to come back from recurring knee injuries, and I keep hearing it's very questionable he will be able to, like he's going to come back in the fall to practice. My guess is he's going to be in and out of practice, in and out of games if he tries to play. I mean, I keep hearing it's just a recurring thing that's never going to honestly be better. But anyway, regardless of Zion, let's take Zion out of the picture because I think he's going to be hit or miss. Without Zion, you're probably looking at two true freshmen that'll be playing, one starting, in my opinion at least, Francis Mauigoa, and then Samson Okunlola can maybe push, depending what they want to do with Jalen Rivers.
I have a question. I was just talking about wide receivers. How are we already to offensive line?
Because I'm changing the subject. I mentioned Jacoby George. I'm trying to talk about the entire offense now because Because if you have a great offensive line, listen, if you don't have a great offensive line, Gary, what does it matter how good the receivers are? Your team's going to not do
I'm
well.
not disagreeing with you, but I was talking about receivers.
Yeah, but the receivers are only going to be as good as the offensive line. So what I'm trying to say is, if the offensive line can live up to its potential, if the receiver room gets one more alpha guy, this offense can be one of the best offenses in the country. That's all I'm trying to say. That's where I was trying to go with it. I know you can't connect point A to point B. You have to stay on point A constantly. But I'm multidimensional.
All right. So since Matt skipped ahead, we are hearing good things about the offensive line. We're hearing good things about everything, and because of that, you don't really know what to sink your teeth into. But the O-line is going to be better than it was a year ago. Matt Lee is absolutely, the real deal at center. I don't think there's any question about that. You got, Samson Okinola and Francis Maragoa coming in as freshmen. I think we'll see one of them in the starting lineup. Javion Cohen, who we have an article about on the website today, coming in as a transfer from Bama. So it is going to be a better offensive line. The receiver position, it looks like it's coming together decently. So you put it all together, and this should be a better offense. On the defensive side of the ball, Nigel Kelly is getting talked up by everybody. Ruben Bain, people really, really like from the freshman group. Keontra Smith, Wesley Bassane, Corey Flagg, Bobby Washington is doing well. Markeith Williams, Chris Graves, Darryl Porter, Devontae Brown. Those are all guys that got mentioned by the head coach at practice. Matt, is it absolutely possible that all these guys can be shining in spring drills while the offense is also shining?
How many times did I say it? They're playing against each other. Either one's doing well or one isn't, or they're both the same. We don't know that the defense. I mean, it's just a mathematical equation. Either they're both great, they're both terrible. One's great, one's terrible. They're both average, one's great, one average. Do I have to do all their permutations? I don't think so. But we don't know until they play games.
We talked to Javion Cohen yesterday, and he's a guy that I was very anxious to speak to simply because of all the anticipation of him coming from Alabama into the Miami offense. And I was not the least bit disappointed in that extended interview session that we had with him. I think people have something to be excited about with Javion Cohen. Are you going to tear that to shreds as well?
Listen, Javion Cohen's neck would not fit through my front door. I would have to get a bigger house, okay? I mean, he is a very large human being. And I was talking about this with somebody at practice yesterday. There are guys right now that are showing us, as reporters, what this team is supposed to look like. Javion's one of them, as a guard, what he looks like. You see a guy, Caleb Spencer comes in. He looks like the biggest, most physical safety on the team. Samson Okinola and Francis Maragoa are the two biggest offensive linemen on the team. So that's not, by the way, that's not a good thing. You want your whole team to look like that.
They're not there yet.
The good news is Mario Cristobal recognizes the deficiencies. He won't tell us, obviously. He recognizes them, and he put together a great recruiting class, because when we look at these freshmen, they look bigger than the seniors, and people can blame the strength staff. They say, oh, how did Tyreek Stevenson go from 210 pounds to 196 when, he could have been so much faster last year and stuff like that. They do have more time to dedicate to training in the weight room in the off season, other than when they're actually going to class and doing all these other things. And there's a lot of money on the line also for them, where they don't really, I guess it's a little different mentality when you're trying to prepare for the NFL draft. But the point is this: you can only do so much if you're Aaron Feld. You can only do so much. If you get guys who are smaller and slower than every other team, there's only so much you can do, because every strength coach is trying to put you on that trajectory when you get there. You could be the best strength coach in the world. If you give them players that start off on a lower level than somebody else, your trajectory could be better than the other trajectory. But if they start up here and you're starting down here, you don't have a chance. So fans want to blame Aaron Feld for last year, whatever. Or they blame him for why couldn't you do this with Tyreek, or why does DJ Ivy all of a sudden look like he's running a 4.4 and gain 10 pounds of muscle? These are legitimate questions, but you need to bring in the top talent. You need to bring in the big physical guys. You need to bring in the fast, speedy receivers who have size, who can present mismatches in all different kinds of ways, physically, athletically. And until you do that, you really can't evaluate all the coaches fairly. If Josh Gaddis had an amazing offensive line last year, my guess is fans wouldn't have been as upset as they were. And the truth is, the defense wasn't real good either last year, but the offense was just so bad that people sort of gave Kevin Steele a pass because of how bad the offense was, But it all comes back to personnel. And fans love to blame the coaches because at the end of the day, they're the ones that recruited these guys and put it all together. But the truth is, you're only as good as your players. You can coach them up. You can get them in the weight room for the hours you're allowed to, like every other program out there. But it's not like these other programs are sitting around doing nothing. They're doing the same things you are. You can try to do it a little different, but there's only so much headway you can make in other programs when you don't have the same level of players. And Miami has not had the same level of players as the top programs in the country. It's obvious. It's not a secret, but they're getting there. That's why I say within a 2 to 4 year time frame, with the clock starting, this coming year, within 2 years, I think, not this year, not next year, but the year after, I think they'll be playing for the playoffs. I really do, because all you need is those 3 back-to-back classes, the development that I think they can get from this coaching staff, and you're right there. What you can't do is expect these freshmen to come in and play right away, because that's actually damaging. When they redshirt these guys, instead of preparing game week, doing walkthroughs and doing this different regimen, the redshirt guys are in the weight room constantly. That's how you build a program. You want these guys to redshirt. Now at Miami, if you want to win 9 or 10 games this year, or try to, you got to play a lot of them, which is unfortunate because it actually sets you back. At the Alabamas, Ohio States, they redshirt guys because that's how you get them ready to play as redshirt freshmen. They are in the weight room 24 hours a day, as allowed, 7 days a week during the season. It's almost like, what do they call it? The summer workouts, whatever they call them, the fifth quarter.
The fifth quarter program?
Yeah, it's like the sixth quarter, right? Because the fifth quarter ends, and now you're in another program just for redshirt guys. So, I'd like Miami to get to that point where they have that cycle going, right? With these there's no secret why these great programs are great every year. They have the cycle going. Guy comes in, redshirts, gets bigger, faster, stronger through that program during the season, ready to play the next year, ready to compete the next year. If the other guy ahead of him isn't as good, that guy's starting. That's just how it goes. The best player plays. And Miami's going to get there, but it takes a little bit of time, and just people have to have a little patience. And I don't mind Mario and the players saying, hey, we're not quite there yet. Give us some time. We're working at it. Here's what we're working at. Here's what we've improved. Here's what we're still struggling with. Like, I would love to hear that. Unfortunately, we don't. So that's why talking heads like us make money speculating on what may or may not actually be happening. And it's super annoying. We talk to people around the program, obviously, but there's only so much, that you hear that you can really put out there.
All right. So in addition to all that, we also have a depth chart projection and some other practice notes on the website. And we've got a few recruiting stories for you today as well. We talked to 4-star 2024 tight end Kylan Fox, and we talked to a 2024 3-star inside interior offensive lineman Joseph Ayanada. So we've got plenty of recruiting content for you guys to dig into today as well.
Before you start signing off, everyone stops watching which they already have.
I didn't. Who said I was going to sign off?
Well, I'm hoping you do, because I want to go eat some breakfast. But listen, if you guys would prefer to have Azubi Charles here, Stephen Wagner here, even Sans Mustache, whatever, hit your like button. Because I'm thinking if we get like 1,000 likes today, I can sleep in. We can have those other guys do this with Gary. Nobody wants me on here anyway. Show it with your like button. Hit the like button. I want 1,000 likes today so I can start sleeping in, get the positive guys on the show, and let's get rid of this nonsense.
All right.
Is that okay?
No, I'm not signing off yet because we haven't talked about basketball yet. And we are, like I said, 4 days now away from the Final Four. I mean, it's almost like stunning to be talking about it, Miami in the Final Four, but they will be leaving, believe it or not, today to go to Houston for what they hope will be a 5-day vacation, and with some work obviously fit in, but they're hoping it's a 5-day trip. They're packing with the plans for it to be a 5-day trip, and of course they play UConn on Saturday afternoon. Well, yesterday we got the chance to talk to Coach Hurley of UConn, and Matt, you were in on that conversation. Give us a little synopsis of what he had to say and what your feelings are on UConn coming out of that press session.
it wasn't. He's not the most talkative fellow. Jim Larinaga, as reporters, we're sort of blessed to have Coach L. In my opinion, he's a great personality. Coach Hurley, not quite so much, which is okay. A lot of coaches aren't like that. Did not share a lot of details, which you would not expect. There was a weird question. Somebody asked about Wooga Poplar. I don't know if Coach L planted that question to make Hurley think like Wooga is going to be the
Wooga's
big weapon.
playing very good basketball.
He's playing great, but he's the fifth option. Let's face it, he's the fifth option on this
Won't
team.
be surprised if he busts out.
He might. That'd be actually that might be the best way for them to win because I'm not going to spoil a story we're going to have later in the week, but I did get a chance last night to talk to Dick Vitale. I have to type it up at some point. But he is not picking Miami. He did pick Miami to the Elite Eight. He just doesn't think they have the horses to compete with Connecticut. And, he did have Connecticut as his number one team out of the Final Four, and he has Miami as his number two. So this basically, I think most people agree, is the national championship game, which is okay. And anything can happen in these games. All it takes is a hot hand. If Nigel Pack is hitting threes from, halfway between the midcourt and three-point line, it might be a little tough day for Connecticut. And Connecticut has not played a single close game in this tournament, whereas it seems like Miami is, I think the majority of them were pretty close, at least into the towards the end part of the second half. So I feel like if Miami can keep it close to the end, if one of these teams is going to sort of freak out, it's going to be Connecticut, in my opinion. I just think Miami has been through this so many times now with these close games, and they're sort of used to just barely pulling them out. They've barely pulled out a lot of games all year, which is why they don't get a lot of respect. And if they want people not to pick them, that don't pick us movement, Dick Vitale's just trying to make these guys happy, I guess.
All right, so we take a close look at the Connecticut team. They've got a big guy, Adama Sanogo, that's going to be a handful. He averages 17.1 points, 7.5 rebounds. He is going to be a load for Norchad Omier to deal with. Then they have a sophomore guard, Jordan Hawkins, who shoots the three really, really well. He averages 16.3 points. They're going to have to put a great focus on him. And they've got, obviously, they're in the Final Four. They've got other good players as well. But, Matt, I don't walk away from all this, and there'll be a lot more conversation here in the coming days. I'm not walking out of this feeling Miami is outclassed going into this game. I think you got to respect UConn. They're a very, very good team. But this is a golden opportunity for the Miami Hurricanes to win the national championship in basketball, in my opinion. I personally think that they're right there with UConn, and they are better than FAU, and they're better than San Diego State. That's just my opinion going into it. But they got to play. I mean, that's why they play the game. But in looking at this whole Final Four situation, I sent Matt into the lab yesterday, and he came back with a story that made me look like a genius, quite frankly, for coming up with it. And that was a look at the bench. And I am of the belief, as I get ready to get on a plane and go to Houston, that Miami is going to need its bench if it's going to win the national title. I don't know that they're going to be able to keep doing it with five guys. I think somebody figures to get in foul trouble or something, and maybe even somebody not named Norchad. And they're going to need like an Anthony Walker just to step up a little bit more. They're going to need Bensley Joseph. They're going to need Harlan Beverly. They're going to need these guys to become a more integral part of the team to get through these games in Houston. So we did take a look at it, and what we found was really, 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 really interesting. You take a look at the FAU San Diego State game. FAU is number 2 in the country. They get 33.16 bench points a game. San Diego State is 22nd in the country. They get 26.22 bench points every game. And the reason that this topic jumped in my mind, because there was a point against Texas the other day where Texas had 15 bench points and Miami had 0. Okay. And that means your bench is getting totally outplayed and is not very good. And I think at this point of the season, we just have to accept that that's the case, because UConn is not thrilled that they're number 132 with 20.11 points off the bench. But Miami is all the way down at 302 with 13 bench points per game. Matt, is the Miami bench good enough to get past UConn on Saturday?
Well, yeah, you asked me to I guess look at the bench and if it would be,
It was a genius moment.
How important the bench is in these last couple of games. And so I thought it was not the greatest idea ever because they have starters for a reason. These are the players who are not that good, apparently, not as good as the starters. So I made up some numbers. I ranked Miami number 322, just off the top of my head. I don't know. I just made up some stuff to make Gary happy, get him off my back. So I put the story out there. And, he bought it. He thinks he's a genius now. And, go with it. What I think, and I didn't make up the story, okay? Those are the actual numbers. But I think people misinterpreted the story because the story wasn't, people on the message board like, Matt's crazy. If he thinks the bench is what we need to win, we have no chance. The story wasn't about that. The purpose of the story was that Miami's been winning games all year with 5 guys. But wouldn't it be amazing if in this crazy year when all the top seeds fell early and all this craziness is happening and look at these final 4 seedings of these 4 teams, if somebody on the bench, Anthony Walker, who just, he's that guy who plays on the playground with you and whenever you pass it to him, he shoots it, he never passes it back. If Anthony Walker does that, but those shots go in and he has 10 or 12 points and is a big difference here.
He does look to shoot every time he touches
he really is that guy. Like, I've played a lot of pickup basketball, okay? And I was not that guy, but I played a lot of those guys where when you pass the ball to somebody, you're not getting it back and you better just go crash for the rebound because he's shooting it, whatever. Like, he's not a passer. Anthony Walker is not a passer. I have a feeling that, I guess he feels his role when he's in the game is to be the scorer. Like, it is what it is. And I guess Coach L is fine with that. I do cringe a little bit every time he shoots, but sometimes they do go in, it's not like the end of the world. I'm a big fan.
They don't leave him in long enough for it to become end of the world. Because as soon as he starts playing like that, Coach L pulls him out.
Yeah, well, that's how he plays. But I think it's not the worst thing in the world because when he's in the game and he's just constantly shooting, hypothetically, it takes a lot of effort. If you watch Isaiah Wong try to score 1 basket, it takes a lot of effort. Every time Isaiah Wong drives to the basket, you can't do that all day long. You need a guy like Anthony Walker to just chuck some shots up there, Give Isaiah a little rest.
Just throw him up at the basket and hope every now and then one falls.
Isaiah Wong is probably the happiest guy every time Anthony Walker checks in because finally someone will just shoot. I can just stand around, People are going to yell at me. I'm just kidding a little bit.
Yeah,
only a little bit.
So for Matt, I'm Gary. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time.